The German shepherd sat in the corner of the kennel with its head down, unmoving. Not sleeping, not resting, just existing in that hollow way that made the kennel staff uncomfortable to look at for too long. 3 weeks, Sergeant Morrison said, standing outside the chain-link fence with a clipboard and a deepening frown. 3 weeks, and it hasn't responded to a single command. Won't eat unless we hand feed. Won't train, won't engage. The dog is broken. Corporal Hayes stood beside him, younger, less certain. Maybe it just needs more time. Trauma doesn't heal on a schedule. Time is something we don't have. That dog cost the Marine Corps $200,000 in training and deployment expenses. It's supposed to be a working military asset, not a rescue case. Morrison made a note on his clipboard. I'm recommending euthanasia. The dog has no handler, no mission capability, and no prospects for recovery. But Sergeant Vance is dead. Morrison's voice went flat. KIA 3 weeks ago in Helmand Province. And when her body came home, apparently her dog's will to live didn't make the trip. He turned away from the kennel. I'll file the paperwork today. The dog gets put down Friday unless someone gives me a compelling reason otherwise. Hayes looked back at the shepherd. The dog hadn't moved, hadn't even acknowledged their presence, just sat there staring at nothing with eyes that had gone dull and distant, like someone had turned off the lights inside and forgotten to flip them back on. The dog's name was Cairo. 85 pounds of muscle and training and loyalty that had spent 4 years bonded to a handler who'd treated him like a partner instead of equipment. They'd deployed twice together, walked point on over 300 missions. Cairo had detected IEDs that would have killed entire squads, had taken down insurgents who'd gotten too close to friendly positions, had done everything the Marine Corps had trained him to do with a precision and dedication that made him one of the most effective K-9s in the theater. Then a sniper round had found Sergeant Rachel Vance during a routine patrol, and Cairo had watched her die from 15 feet away, while the corpsmen worked frantically to save her, and the squad returned fire at an enemy they couldn't see. The dog had stayed at her side even after she'd stopped breathing. Had to be physically dragged away when the medevac arrived. Had howled for 6 hours straight on the flight back to base. That was 3 weeks ago. Cairo hadn't made a sound since. The kennel door opened, and a woman walked in carrying a duffel bag and wearing civilian clothes that didn't quite hide her military posture. Early 30s, lean and hard in the way that spoke of years of physical training. She had a scar along her jawline and the kind of eyes that tracked movement before conscious thought kicked in. Hayes straightened. Ma'am, the kennel isn't open to civilians right now. Good thing I'm not a civilian. She pulled out a military ID. Staff Sergeant Emma Vance. I'm here for my sister's dog. Morrison turned, recognition dawning. You're Rachel's sister. Was. Now I'm the only family Cairo has left. Emma pocketed the ID and looked past them toward the kennels. Which one is he? Ma'am, with respect, the dog is non-responsive. It hasn't eaten properly in weeks, hasn't obeyed commands, hasn't shown any interest in which kennel, Morrison pointed. Emma walked past them without waiting for permission, moving down the row of chain-link enclosures, past dogs that barked and jumped and pressed against the fence seeking attention. She stopped at Cairo's kennel and stood there, silent, studying the shepherd that sat motionless in the corner. Cairo, she said quietly. The dog's ear twitched. Barely. But it was the first reaction anyone had gotten in 3 weeks. Emma dropped into a crouch, making herself smaller, less threatening. I know she's gone. I know it hurts." Her voice stayed steady despite the grief that flickered across her face. "But you don't get to quit. She wouldn't want that. And I'm not leaving here without you." Cairo's head turned. Just slightly. Just enough to look at her with eyes that were still dull but no longer completely empty. "That's right. You remember me, Rachel's annoying little sister who visited your kennel every time I was stateside." Emma reached into her duffel and pulled out a worn tactical vest. Rachel's vest. Still carried her scent. Still had her name tape stitched above the left pocket. She held it against the chain-link fence. Cairo stood. The movement was slow, uncertain, like he'd forgotten how his legs worked. But he crossed the kennel floor and pressed his nose against the vest through the fence, breathing in the scent of a handler who wasn't coming back. Morrison stepped forward. "Ma'am, I don't think—" "Open the kennel." "Regulations state that only authorized handlers can—" "I said open it." Something in her voice made Morrison reach for his keys. He unlocked the kennel door and stepped back, ready to intervene if the dog became aggressive or unpredictable. Emma opened the door and walked inside. Cairo didn't move, just stood there with his nose pressed against the vest Emma held, his whole body trembling with something between grief and recognition and desperate hope. "She loved you," Emma said softly. "More than anything. You know that, right? Every letter she sent home, half of it was about you, about how smart you were, how brave, how you saved her life a dozen times over and never asked for anything except her attention and a tennis ball." Cairo made a sound. Not quite a whimper, not quite a whine, just a broken noise that carried more emotion than any words could. Emma knelt and put the vest on the ground between them. "I can't replace her. Won't even try. But I can give you a reason to keep going. A mission. A purpose." She looked directly into Cairo's eyes. "I'm Army K9. Been working military dogs for 8 years. I know what you are, what you're capable of. And I know you're not broken. You're grieving. There's a difference." She stood and walked out of the kennel, leaving the vest on the floor. "You coming or staying? Because I'm walking out that door in 30 seconds, and you need to decide if you're done or if you've got more work to do." Morrison opened his mouth to protest. Hayes grabbed his arm and shook his head. Emma walked toward the exit, didn't look back, didn't call the dog, just walked with the same steady confidence that Rachel had carried, the same posture, the same purposeful stride that said she knew where she was going and expected others to follow. 20 feet from the door, she heard the click of claws on concrete. Cairo had picked up the vest in his mouth and was following her with his head mow and his movements uncertain but present. Moving, choosing, deciding that maybe there was still something worth doing, even if the person he'd loved most was gone. Emma stopped and let him catch up. When he reached her side, she knelt and ran her hand along his head, checking his condition. Thin, too thin, dehydrated. His coat was dull, and his muscle tone had deteriorated from weeks of inactivity. But his eyes had light in them again. Not much. Just a flicker. But it was there. "We've got work to do," Emma said. "You and me. Starting today. Starting now." She looked up at Morrison. "I'm taking him. Filing the paperwork to transfer him to my unit at Fort Bragg. Army K9 operations can use a dog with his training and experience." "Ma'am, the dog is scheduled for euthanasia. I can't just—" "You can, and you will. because the alternative is explaining to the Marine Corps why you put down a fully trained combat K-9 with 4 years of deployment experience instead of transferring him to a handler who actually wants him. Emma's voice went cold. Make the call. Get the authorization. I'll be back tomorrow to pick him up. She walked out with Cairo at her side, the dog still carrying Rachel's vest like a promise he wasn't ready to let go of. Morrison stood there for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. Yeah, I need to speak to someone about a K-9 transfer. No, not standard procedure. Yes, I understand the complications. Just get me the authorization. Hayes watched through the window as Emma loaded Cairo into her truck. You think she can actually fix him? I don't think he's broken, Morrison said quietly. I think we just didn't know how to reach him. 6 months later, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The Army K-9 training facility hummed with activity as handlers ran their dogs through drills and scenarios designed to test capability under stress. Emma stood at the edge of the obstacle course, watching Cairo navigate a complex series of barriers and threats with the fluid precision of a dog who'd remembered what he was built to do. The training officer beside her made notes on a tablet. His scores are exceptional. Top 5% across all metrics. Honestly, I've never seen a recovery like this. 6 months ago, the file said he was non-responsive and recommended for euthanasia. He wasn't broken. He was grieving. What's the difference? Broken means there's nothing left to work with. Grieving means there's pain that needs purpose. Emma whistled and Cairo immediately stopped mid-course and looked toward her, waiting for direction. He needed to know his life still had meaning even though hers ended. And you gave him that. I gave him a mission. The rest was already there. The training officer checked his tablet. We've got him scheduled for deployment evaluation next month. If he passes, there's a Special Forces unit requesting K-9 support for operations in Syria. They specifically asked for dogs with combat experience. Emma nodded slowly. He'll pass. You sound certain. I am. That night, in the kennel building after hours, Emma sat on the floor of Cairo's enclosure with her back against the wall. The shepherd lay beside her, with his head on her lap, relaxed in a way that had taken months to build. She ran her hand along his neck, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. You miss her, Emma said quietly. I know you do. I miss her too. Her voice cracked slightly. She was my big sister, my hero, the person I joined the army to be like. She paused. But she's gone, and we're still here, and she'd be pissed if we wasted that. Cairo's tail thumped once against the floor. Deployment evaluation is coming up. You're going to pass. You're going to go back to work, and you're going to save lives because that's what you do. That's what she trained you to do. Emma leaned her head back against the wall. I can't deploy with you. Different unit, different mission set. But the handler they're pairing you with is good, experienced. He'll treat you right. The tail stopped thumping. I know you don't want another handler. But you don't get to quit just because it's hard. Neither do I. We keep going. We keep working. We keep being the people she believed we could be. 4 weeks later, Cairo passed his deployment evaluation with perfect scores. The Special Forces handler assigned to him was a quiet operator named Martinez, who'd worked K-9s before and understood that the dog wasn't equipment to be commanded, but a partner to be trusted. They deployed to Syria 3 days later. Emma didn't hear from Martinez for 2 months. Then an encrypted email arrived with a subject line that just said, Your dog is a legend. She opened it. The operation had gone bad. Martinez's team had been clearing a compound when they'd walked into an ambush. 4 insurgents, better positioned, better armed, with the element of surprise. Martinez had taken a round in the leg in the first 5 seconds and gone down hard behind inadequate cover while his team scrambled to respond. Cairo had been 20 meters away, clearing a separate building with another team member. The second he heard Martinez go down, the sound of his handler's pain transmitted through their radio link. The dog had made a decision. He'd gone through the first insurgent like a missile. 85 pounds of trained aggression hitting at full sprint, jaws locking on the man's weapon arm and dragging him down before he could fire on Martinez's position. The insurgent screamed. His weapon clattered away. The second insurgent turned to shoot the dog. Cairo released the first target and hit the second before the man could acquire aim. Teeth found throat. The insurgent dropped. The third and fourth insurgents fired. Rounds impacted the wall above Cairo's head, showering him with concrete fragments. He didn't stop. Didn't hesitate. Just kept moving toward Martinez with single-minded determination that ignored bullets and chaos and every survival instinct that said retreat. The third insurgent went down when Cairo hit him low, jaws clamping on his knee and twisting with enough force to shatter bone. The man collapsed, weapon firing uselessly into the ceiling. The fourth insurgent ran. Smart man. He'd just watched a dog tear through 3 armed fighters like they were made of paper. By the time Martinez's team secured the compound, Cairo had dragged his wounded handler into cover and was lying across his body, protecting him, refusing to let anyone approach until Martinez gave the verbal command that it was safe. 4 insurgents. 4 seconds of chaos. One dog who decided that his handler's life was worth more than his own safety. Martinez's email continued. The doc says I'm going to keep the leg. Cairo is why. If he hadn't reached me when he did, I would have bled out before medevac arrived. Your sister trained one hell of a dog. Thank you for giving him a reason to keep being that dog. Emma read the email 3 times, then walked out to the kennel where she kept Rachel's vest in a sealed container. She held it for a long moment, feeling the worn fabric, smelling the faint scent that still lingered after all these months. He's not broken, she said to the empty room. He never was. He's exactly what you made him. Loyal, brave, willing to run through hell for the people he's bonded to. She folded the vest carefully and put it back. You'd be proud of him, Rach. I know I am. 18 months later, Cairo came home. Not in a crate, not as cargo. Walking off the transport on his own 4 legs with Martinez beside him. Both of them sporting scars and decorations and the kind of quiet confidence that came from doing hard work in hard places and surviving it. Emma met them at the airfield. Cairo spotted her from 50 meters away, and his tail started wagging for the first time since Martinez had known him. When Martinez released him from heel position, the dog sprinted across the tarmac and hit Emma hard enough to nearly knock her over, his whole body wiggling with the kind of joy that had been missing for so long. Easy, Cairo. Easy. Emma knelt and let the dog greet her properly, running her hands over his frame, checking for injuries. Thinner than when he'd deployed. New scars along his shoulder and flank. But alive, whole. Still working. Martinez approached and shook her hand. Staff Sergeant Vance, good to finally meet you face to face. You kept him safe. He kept me safe, multiple times. The ambush was just the first. Martinez looked down at Cairo. Best partner I ever had. When I heard he was non-responsive and scheduled for euthanasia before you took him, I couldn't believe it. That dog has more heart than most people I know. He was grieving. People thought that meant broken. They were wrong. Yes, they were. Cairo had calmed down, but stayed pressed against Emma's leg, his presence solid and real and undeniably alive. She ran her hand along his head, feeling the shape of him, the warmth of him. The absolute proof that sometimes the things people give up on are the things most worth saving. "What happens now?" Martinez asked. "He's still got years of working life left if you want to keep him active." Emma looked down at Cairo, at the dog who'd fought through grief and trauma and the assumption that he had nothing left to give, who'd proven that loyalty didn't die just because the person you loved did, who'd torn through 4 armed men to reach a handler he'd only known for months because that's what working dogs did. They protected their people regardless of cost. "He's earned retirement if he wants it," Emma said. "But something tells me he's not ready to hang it up yet." Cairo's tail wagged. "Yeah, that's what I thought." Emma stood. "We'll do another evaluation cycle. See if he's still fit for deployment. If he is, we find him another handler. If not, he comes home with me and spends his remaining years chasing tennis balls and sleeping on furniture he's not supposed to be on." Martinez smiled. "For what it's worth, ma'am, I think he's got a lot of work left in him. The question is whether we're worthy of it." "Monsieur Martin." 3 months later, Cairo deployed again with a new Special Forces team. Then again 6 months after that, and again. Each deployment adding to his legend. Each mission proving that the dog they'd almost put down was one of the most capable K9s in military service. The Marine Corps kennel staff who'd recommended euthanasia never knew what Cairo became. Never knew about the lives he saved, or the operations he supported, or the handlers who came home, because an 85-pound German shepherd decided their survival was worth running through bullets and chaos and everything that should have killed him. They just knew they'd approved a transfer instead of an execution. And sometimes, that was enough. Emma kept Rachel's vest in her quarters. On bad days, when the grief felt too heavy and the loss too permanent, she'd hold it and remember that her sister's legacy wasn't just the dog she'd trained. It was the lesson she'd taught everyone who knew her. That loyalty and love and purpose don't die when people do. They transfer. They adapt. They find new forms and new expressions and new reasons to keep going. Cairo had been broken, they said. Non-responsive. Beyond recovery. But he'd torn through 4 armed men to reach his handler, because that's what happened when you gave a grieving dog a reason to live and the mission to back it up. He wasn't broken. He never had been. He was just waiting for someone to see past the grief to the warrior underneath. And when Emma had walked into that kennel 6 months after Rachel's death, she hadn't seen a damaged animal that needed to be put down. She'd seen her sister's partner, her sister's legacy, her sister's 4-legged proof that some bonds don't break just because death tries to sever them. The dog tore through 4 armed men. But first, he tore through the assumption that grief meant the end instead of the beginning. And in doing so, he proved that the most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate what a loyal heart is capable of when it finds a new reason to fight.